Having a discussion about where our travel plan. I am joined now by Uday Ayyagar, VP of AI Strategy at Ascendum Solutions.
That's right.
Before we get, thank you so much for being here. Of course, you do that, yes. Thank you so much for being
Pleasure.
here. Tell us about Ascendum Solutions and tell us about what you are currently working on at Ascendum.
Awesome. Yeah. So Ascendum Solutions is a management and a technology consulting firm. We have some excellent clients list, marquee clients who are leaders in the finance and the healthcare industry. What I lead specifically at Ascendum is the innovation wing, which you can call it a practice, but essentially a center of excellence with a wide range of exponential technology expertise. And when you say exponential technology, it's all about AI currently. But we are indexing a little on the Gen AI piece of it because there's so much of benefits and value that we can bring to our clients. And so I'm basically leading this product group within embedded in a larger firm where I operate essentially as a team behind a team.
So you're leading this product group at Ascendum, and I have to imagine there's tons of product ideas, ones that make it on the board, ones that make it to the actual customers and the clients. Tell me about the most exciting initiative that you're currently working on at Ascendum that is either maybe already out, you're still working on. What excites you the most about what you're working on at Ascendum?
Yeah, absolutely. So that should be a simple one. We got the first thing that I did when I entered the organization was create a roster of use cases. That's the easier part. But productionizing those, doing the POCs is kind of relatively simple. But taking that to execution and productionizing that is a challenge. Which is where you kind of have to evaluate technologies, you got to build up skill sets, do a lot of upskilling within my own team. All these are new technologies, but then it takes a little bit of a... So the product that I'm thoroughly excited about is one in the financial services where we are dealing with a lot of document parsing without actually talking too much about the product itself because it's still under NDA and we are actually rolling it out to some of our customers as a pilot. It involves a lot of document parsing, intelligent and automated workflow initiatives, and then a combination of technologies like using LangChain and VoiceFlow. And then we got Llama, we got a hands on it very recently, which is giving us some phenomenal results in terms of accuracy. So all these technologies put together, eventually bring it into translating that into a customer value is a very exciting journey. And this basically goes around the underwriting, the mortgage underwriting processes.
That's very interesting, and we're under NDA, so we can't talk too much about it. But one thing that you mentioned that is I think very interesting is the idea that most valuable AI solutions, I would argue, are not just a single model, a single LLM with a single prompt.
No.
It's what you just described. There's a whole workflow. There's a whole chain of events happening that actually ends up providing value to the customer, usually by the end, but sometimes along the way, right? You need to load the documents, you need to parse the documents, maybe you need to audit the documents. There's different
Absolutely.
work points along the way. What is the philosophy that you are bringing to Ascendum around navigating both building a workflow for a solution and evaluating that workflow for a given solution? How do you think about that?
Yeah, so one of the core pillars at that's like first and foremost is the governance, because we're dealing with large amounts of data, vast amounts of data. When you talk large language models and enabling a business capability using LLMs at the core, you got to really be very clever about how you architect that, because it's got to be what I say it's mostly like a microservice architecture. It's not a monolithic application. So in that regard, you need to have a large language model perhaps could be really heavy in certain respects. So you got to really chunk up those different solutions so that you have those modular, a combination of small language models, large action models, LLMs, and then use a set of technologies that actually enable these and make this into a composite AI offering, right? So the advantage with that is there's a lot of reusability component. Same principles that go with the microservice architecture maybe a decade back, which is still very relevant now, right? So the same thing applies here. So what you don't want to have is a situation where there is your governance and your proprietary data is compromised or basically goes out. So you can have, it sounds more simpler than in reality. So the architecture and the way you really architect the network architecture and the actual large language models that you put together really dictates on how you actually preserve the data and also give the accuracy and relevance, not just factually correct data or responses, but also keep the relevance to what the customer is actually asking for. So putting all these pieces together is absolutely essential. And then one last point to this is the human in the loop, just so like, we have an oversight from human, wherever the approvals are required, wherever this accuracy of the output of the results is required. You need to have a combination of all these so that you have one full holistic solution, which kind of really makes the impact that we're looking for.
Human in the loop obviously is a big idea. The idea that you want humans involved in the process at several steps along the way. I say several because my question to you is, how much human in the loop is enough? Is there such a thing as too much? There's definitely not enough, but is there such a thing as too much human in the loop? How do you think about which points of the workflow demand a human in the loop and which points in a workflow could use a human in the loop, but maybe it's not necessary, or maybe there is no such place where it is not necessary? It should be able. How do you think about where a human should be in the loop?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Sinan, it's a very good question. I mean, it basically depends upon. I mean, on the one end, you have automation, thorough automation, like all your petabytes of data, which obviously cannot be processed by a human. It's being processed in a recommendation or a decision, whatever the solution is, whatever its purpose is. So that's one end of the spectrum. The other is like doing it manually. So what we obviously have to be doing as an industry is to calibrate the overall process more towards automation and actually make a judgment as to when the accuracies start going up. You should be able to configure the human in the loop a little lesser. So you need to start indexing more on the automation part. So as a classic example, if you have a document parsing system, and if it's a sensitive document, let's say it's an underwriting 500-page document, or if it's a loan application for that matter, you cannot be trusting on the system, the outputs, to an extent where you basically completely close your eyes and let it generate the output, because you may probably have a runaway freight train on your hands, right? So you need to basically ensure that the human in the loop or the human is there inserted in the workflow, so that he basically eyeballs and looks at the output that's being generated. If 500,000 is not being interpreted as 5 million by misplacing a document, a decimal, some smudges in the documents and all. I'm just giving an example of a document parsing, right? So you can actually extrapolate that throughout the process, throughout all these services that all these that we are enabling as a part of the solution. And you need to make a judgment as to where you need to really ensure that there are right checks and balances along the entire process.
So it's contextual to the point where certain area points are going to be more sensitive than others. That makes sense. It also sounds like there's also going to be some kind of, there might be some kind of, almost like a threshold for evaluation performance that says, okay, look, we needed a human in the loop, and we are judging the evaluation of this process or decision point along the way, whether it's accuracy, precision, recall, whatever it might be. But there's going to be some threshold that when we reach it, okay, maybe it's time to step back the human in the loop, because it looks like, at least, the AI
self-learning itself.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. So you bring up another kind of point behind the point, which is to say that there's always going to be some kind of push and pull between innovation and governance, right? We want to parse these documents. However, some of them might be sensitive. We might need to include some more governance, humans in the loop, than we might for some other workflow process. This is true for any company, I would argue. How is Ascendum approaching that push and pull with their clients? When a client wants to innovate faster and faster and faster, how do you navigate that world of, okay, yes, we need to innovate as fast as possible. However, these are the regulations, governance aspects that we might need to take into account. How do you navigate that?
Yeah. So great question. So again, Sinan, we being in Silicon Valley have seen innovations kind of go much at a breakneck speed before the government and the regulations could catch up, right? But these do catch up. So before they end up in severe penalties and all, you got to really make sure you have a solid governance policies. So every company, and to your other point, every company is actually trying to slap AI onto everything.
True.
POC to production is a much less traversed path, I would say, because the reality sets in once the POC is done. Uh, for reasons like hallucination, how do you reduce it? You cannot eliminate it, but you can do everything to reduce it. All your ML models that have been fine-tuned on your custom data, they kind of start drifting based on the new regulations, or they have to be retuned to address some new regulations that come your way. Manufacturing has OSHA, healthcare has HIPAA. I mean, there's just a few, right? And
SOC 2,
then SOC 2, and
PCI,
PCI, PII, and all these things. So I mean, the going in assumption is for the industry, you need to not over-index a lot, and then at the cost of innovation, but then keep these guardrails in mind. But at the same time, you got to have a very good monitoring, ML monitoring infrastructure as well, so that you keep ensuring that the results that are being generated are absolutely absolutely relevant to the output that you're looking for, right? So in that regard, you need to have a proper governance structure. You need to have an adaptable and a scalable and a highly configurable governance structure, so that in the future, anything new that comes your way as an industry or as a company, you should have the flexibility, at least technologically, to be able to adapt it, and you got along with the scale and everything else that you're trying to achieve.
So you bring up my next point beautifully, which is that AI is always evolving, right? Silicon Valley has always been rapidly evolving the innovation, to your point, sometimes ahead of regulations and governments.
All the time, most of the time.
We're going to keep doing that,
Yeah.
right? So what do you think, or what do you want to see from, let's start with the innovation side. What are you looking at as some of the bigger trends, both short-term and long-term, in AI innovation that either you or Ascendum is excited about monitoring, acting on? Like, what are you most excited about as a trend?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Sinan, I've been here in this in the Valley for almost close to 3 decades now. So there have been different levels, but the message is, the technologies have been phenomenally been transforming the way we live, the way we interact, and everything. But the common message across all these initiatives, technology initiatives, whether it was ERP in the 90s, or we had cloud come up from Amazon's first service, and then we had to cloudify everything, and now we got AI, and then
Cloudify. I'm going to use that from now. I like that. Cloudify.
Cloudify, right? It's a verb now. So we had AI, and then now we had Gen AI. So it's basically
now we're AI-ifying things.
AI-ifying things, right? So it's like kid in a candy box. You got all these technologies, but the essence really is to impact the bottom line. It's the business driving all these technologies, because
There's value.
It's the value. It's the high impact, and whether if you come across metrics for the sales or for the financial, you need to improve your top line or bottom line growth, or from an operational COO's mandate or his pressures are to improve the cycle times, improve capacity, or reduce or improve operational efficiencies and such. So these are the guiding lights that have never changed, right? So how the pathways that technology enables to get to those points is kind of accelerating through these new technologies. So what I'm trying to look at, and the trend that I see going forward, is this repetitive, manual, mundane, highly inaccurate, and error-prone process have now a way with each and every new technology to kind of collapse and give you higher levels of business outputs, if you will.
Yeah. So couldn't agree more. I think the marriage of there's a bottom line for the business. What is the value that we are providing?
Yes.
And are we doing it at a cost that actually makes sense for our business? Has always existed. Then there's the machine learning AI team who always says, look, we have constraints. There are certain things, limitations that we have to take into account while providing that value, to your point. Today, again, to your point, that's still the case. There's still going to be conversations around, well, we need to drive value, but of course there are limitations, whether that's hallucinations, compute, regulations, what have you. Has anything drastically changed in that, or do you really just see this as the same old tale, just different models?
At a principally, at a very high level, I don't think any of these key metrics have changed, because you just want to keep on improving and reach a higher level of efficiencies by an order of magnitude, obviously enabled by technology. But what I see, so for example, right now you need to have customer satisfaction to the brim. Like, you need to have real-time interactions with your devices. If a salesperson is driving a car, he wants to get some collateral from his past, from the vast repository of all the sales that the company has ever done. He should be able to speak to a device and get real-time answers. So those things are really compressed the human, the lag or the real-time. It's really improved the real-time aspect to the conversations or the human interactions. But I don't think fundamentally these metrics have changed. But yeah, like I said earlier, the pathways that the technology is enabling to get to these metrics has radically changed, more so over the last year. Even though Gen AI is very nascent, 2 years old. But then it's slowly, I think in the Gartner's hype cycle, it's kind of already reached the plateau of productivity, if I may say that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there are a lot of use cases, and companies are very quickly realizing the benefits.
Yeah. The coin that I coined for you, AIify. As these businesses are looking to AIify their bottom lines, you're a leader in AI strategy. What are some of the biggest kind of gotchas? What are some of the things that people are not thinking of enough that you really want them to be thinking of when adopting AI into their systems? What do they need to know?
Absolutely. So close question to my heart, right? So we have this conversation all the time with at Ascendum. I'm very fortunate to have a very strong engineering and leadership team. We keep on tinkering with some of the latest technology. We're doing something with Llama, like I said. We have, we're putting all these different pieces to see, how we can not just do what the API is designed to do, but also kind of look at how it would look once it's in production, right? Because POC and production, that's a long journey. I think could you repeat the question again?
No, yeah, of course. It's just if I am someone who, technical or not, trying to adopt AI, what pillars am I not thinking of that you want me to think of?
So the key 3 pillars, I would say, is you need to have accuracy of data, because large volumes of data are being crunched and outputs being generated. Again, you don't want to get out of control. You need to have the knobs in your hand so that you kind of tweak it so that the accuracy is still there. Otherwise, it could be disastrous. The second pillar is governance, right? Every company must have a governance policy depending upon the industry, depending upon the geography, location they are. So that's the second pillar. The third is the cost. Like I said, from POC to production, it's not truly a question of feasibility, which is what POCs are for. But when it comes to production, you're talking about scale. You're talking about actually having edge, different architectures satisfying different data patterns, different RAG models and whatnot. So cost is absolutely essential. So we basically run our clients through this entire journey, and it's very specific to their clients, position or their systems or what have you, right? So we act as a trusted advisor. That's where I say we are a management consulting firm also, where we evaluate their entire systems architecture and their how their organization is running their existing systems, all the way down to the technology pieces on what's most appropriate for them.
So be mindful of your data, be mindful of your modeling, be mindful of moving from POC to production, all the quote unquote hidden costs, so to speak. Uday Ayyagari, VP of AI Strategy at Ascendum Solutions. Thank you so much for being on the show. Wonderful insights, and we look forward to hearing what's next from Ascendum. Thank you so much.
Yes, let's stay in touch. Thank you. All right.